Hey guys, welcome to our weekly news show here on Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb, your host, and wow, what an incredible week it has been here in India's startup ecosystem. We have a bunch of new Indian startup unicorns to talk about. We also have the situation with Ashneer Grover continuing to devolve, unfortunately. We also have Navi Technologies planning on going public, and Ather is working on a new scooter. And we're going to be talking about all of these things and more coming up right after this. All right, so first up in the news, the Ashneer Grover saga is continuing to unfold here. And it looks like BharatPe's board is actually looking for a reason to fire him. There's just so much controversy surrounding Ashneer Grover right now that it's dragging the business down. But they can't actually legally fire him unless they can prove that he committed financial fraud. And so they've hired PwC to look deeply into the company's books to see if there is actually some evidence of financial fraud. And allegedly, this is according to reports, there has been. Now, we actually know most of this because Ashneer Grover himself went on an 80-minute long interview with Money Control and talked about the entire situation. And he's denying everything. He's saying that the audio clip that was leaked is fake. He's saying that he wasn't involved in any financial fraud. And now he's asking the board to either pay him 4,000 crore rupees for his 9.5% stake in the company, or just let him continue to run the company. Now, one point of controversy here is BharatPe's valuation. So the company was last valued at $3 billion, but the payout that Ashneer is asking for values the company at $6 billion, which he thinks is a fair market value. Since that $3 billion valuation, the startup has seen a lot of changes. They now have a banking license, they're offering a buy now, pay later product called Postpay, and a peer-to-peer lending platform called the 12% Club. All right, next up in the news, Ather Energy is working on a new electric scooter. It might not be a brand new scooter, it might be a variant of the 450, but they're working on a new scooter nonetheless, and it's going to be launched probably in the next 6 months. So right now, Ather's 450X has a range of 85 kilometers on a single charge, which pales in comparison to Ola's 135 kilometers on a single charge. So that's the big problem that they're going to be trying to solve with this new variant, a bigger battery pack that gives the user longer range. Now, the expected range on this new scooter is going to be somewhere between 110 and 115 kilometers on a single charge, which isn't quite the 135 kilometers that Ola has. But we got to keep in mind here too that Ola has basically destroyed their brand's image and reputation by not meeting their customers' expectations and making false promises. Whereas Ather has a pretty good reputation and they've been building their scooters from scratch for years now. They've mastered the tech and they're offering a great experience to their customers. And not only that, but they have the expertise of Hero Motor Corp behind them too, which owns 34.8% in the company. All right, next up in the news, Sachin Bansal's fintech and insurance startup Navi Technologies, which he started back in 2018, is already gearing up to go public. The company has been converted from a private company into a public company, which is something that you have to do if you want to go public. And while we don't really have an exact timeline at this point, they haven't even filed their DRHP, they're probably going to be going public near the end of 2022. So in a nutshell, Navi Technologies offers loans and insurance, and they've also launched their own mutual fund to offer more investment opportunities to their customers. Now, one thing that's interesting about Navi is that the business hasn't been built from scratch. Instead, they've taken an acquisition approach. Getting into the banking and insurance spaces requires a lot of licenses, and it would have taken Navi a long time to get these licenses if they built the business from scratch. And so by taking the acquisition route and just buying up a bunch of companies that already had these licenses, they were able to grow more quickly. Now, we'll probably find out more about Navi Technologies' financial situation once they file their DRHP, but in the financial year of 2021, they brought in revenue totaling 779 crore rupees, and they were also profitable. They posted a 71.2 crore rupee profit. Besides this, they've also filed for a universal banking license as they're planning on building a bank from the ground up. All right, moving on to some acquisition news now. Indian fintech giant Razorpay has acquired a majority stake in Kurlek, marking their first international acquisition and their fourth acquisition overall. So Kurlek is a Malaysian fintech company that offers recurring payment solutions for businesses. And this acquisition is going to allow Razorpay to expand into the Southeast Asian market and also to broaden their product portfolio. Today, more than 8 million businesses are using Razorpay to process payments worth $60 billion in 2021. All right, next up, this video is brought to you by our longtime sponsor, Jungle Ventures. And today, I wanted to highlight two videos that they recently posted on their YouTube channel. The first of these is on how to build a great team and how to establish your startup's culture early on. And here's my favorite clip from that video.
From the moment you have 200 people, you cannot control what everybody in the organization does and how they do things. You can only trust that they have the right information, that they have the right mindset, and they have the right skills to get things done. And this is hardly something that you can do or change overnight. This is something that you have to build from day one.
So while building a great team and establishing your startup's culture early on is super important, it's also equally important to start making money, which is something that a lot of startups struggle with early on. And so this next video is about getting your first 100 customers. And it's specifically geared towards SaaS startups, but I think there's a lot of takeaways for any kind of startup founder here.
I'd like to say that actually the first 100 customers were actually people that we interacted with during our marketing survey. So that would be like my go-to, the lowest hanging fruit. Then second, we actually realized that we were in an industry where it's not like every day that you're going to, register a business or need your corpsec. So it's all about really targeting the right person at the right time with the right message. And for that, actually, there is nothing, better than outbound marketing at the very, very beginning.
So if you found those clips interesting and you want to watch the full videos, then you can find the links to them in the description and pinned comment down below. And while you're over there on Jungle Ventures YouTube channel, you might as well hit subscribe too, because they're constantly making new videos specifically made for startup founders like yourself, whether you're a startup founder today or you're planning on starting up someday. And thanks to Jungle Ventures for sponsoring this video. All right, moving on to some funding news now. We would cover the biggest funding round this week, which was Ethereum-based protocol and framework Polygon's $450 million funding round. Their cryptocurrency Matic is now sitting at a market cap of $20 billion at the time of me filming this video. And this is the largest ever funding round raised in India's crypto space, and in fact, in India's Web3 space in general. However, we actually already covered this news item on the second episode of our ongoing series where we talk about all of the Indian Web3 news. So you can check that video out up here if you're interested in learning more about what's happening in India's Web3 space. But now let's move on to the second piece of funding news, because India has its sixth startup unicorn of 2022, ElasticRun. They've raised $300 million in a funding round led by SoftBank's Vision Fund 2 at a $1.5 billion valuation, which is a more than 3x jump from their April of 2021 valuation of $400 million. So ElasticRun was started in 2016 to help Kirana stores here in India to source products directly from top brands, and also to help them secure working capital for their business. Today, ElasticRun is enabling 10 million Kirana stores to directly source their products from over 100 brands across the country. All right, next up in the funding news, home decor and renovation platform Livspace has raised $180 million in a funding round led by KKR at a $1.2 billion valuation, making them the seventh Indian startup unicorn of 2022. So Livspace started its journey back in 2014, offering a one-stop shop for all interior home design solutions. And they would connect homeowners directly with designers, and once the design and budget were finalized, then Livspace would take care of the execution. Today, Livspace is offering these services across India and also countries like Singapore and Saudi Arabia. And they're going to be using these funds to continue this international expansion across Asia Pacific, the Middle East, North Africa, and Australia. All right, next up in the funding news, Pune-based logistics service provider Xpressbees has raised $300 million in a funding round led by Blackstone Growth, TPG Growth, and Chris Capital at a $1.2 billion valuation, which of course makes them the eighth Indian startup unicorn of 2022. Also, one thing to note here for all of you who are from or are currently living in Pune is that this is the second Indian startup unicorn from Pune this week. So back in 2012, Xpressbees started off as the logistics and delivery arm of FirstCry, an e-commerce platform for baby products, but the company was spun out into an independent entity in 2015. And today, Xpressbees delivers more than 1.5 million packages every single day for 1,000 customers across 3,000 cities in India. The startup is currently on track to rake in 1,800 crore rupees in revenue in the financial year of 2022, and they're already profitable. They're EBITDA positive. Xpressbees is going to be using these funds to increase automation and efficiency, and also to expand their geographical presence. Alright, next up in the funding news, virtual events platform Airmeet has raised $35 million in a funding round led by Process Ventures and the Sistema Asia Fund. So in a nutshell, Airmeet enables individuals and businesses to host virtual events. At the moment, there's more than 1,000 customers using their platform, but only 15% of these are based out of India. And by the end of this year, they're planning to increase their customer base to 15,000 customers. Airmeet is going to be using these funds to add new experiences to their virtual events platform by way of R&D, and also to expand their international business too. Alright, next up in the funding news, we're going to try something here that we haven't done before, which is to go through a couple of funding news items rather quickly. Now, normally we wouldn't even cover these news items, but we thought that these are important things that are happening in the ecosystem, and so just by covering the top 3 or 4 funding news items isn't really doing the situation justice. It doesn't make people realize just how much funds are being raised by Indian startups every single week. And so we wanted to try to include some of those funding news items in this video, but going through them fast so that we don't have to spend too much time on them. So here we go. So first of all, B2B lending startup Mintifi has raised $40 million to expand their lending product portfolio by adding products like buy now, pay later solutions for SMEs. Up next, we have Binny Bansal's scaling platform for startups X to 10X, which has raised $25 million in a funding round led by Binny Bansal himself to help develop learning programs, software tools, and operating capabilities that will enable startups to scale their operations. After that, we have clinical stage biopharmaceutical startup Bugworks Research, and they've raised $18 million to support the development of their broad-spectrum antibacterial agent BWC0977. Next, we have Karbon Card, which offers corporate cards to businesses and startups, and they've raised $15 million to offer complete neobanking services to businesses. After that, we have SaaS-based compliance automation startup Sprinto, and they've raised $10 million to open their first office in the United States. And then finally, some really rapid-fire funding news items here. Wealthy.in has raised $7.5 million, SatSure has raised $5 million, Cofluence has raised $4 million, Elever has raised $750 million, and then last but not least, automated crypto trading platform Mudrex has raised $6.5 million. And actually, more than 2 years ago, I interviewed the founder of Mudrex, Rohit Goyal, and you can check that interview out up here. Alright, that is all the startup news that I have for you guys this week. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. Big thanks now to all of our Backstage with Millionaires members, our unicorns, our decacorns, and our hectacorns, and of course also big thanks to Jungle Ventures, our longtime sponsor. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Backstage with Millionaires, and I will see you in the next one.